Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first in a series of office hours that Ophea will be hosting for the 23-24 school year. Today's office hours will focus on intramurals with a theme of creating and leading fun, safe, and inclusive intramural activities. I'm one of your co-facilitators today, Rebecca Richardson, and I'm an instructional program lead with the Halton District School Board in health and physical education, the arts, safety, and well-being. And I'll turn it over to my partner, Karen, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Karen Trotter. I am the consultant for student health and well-being with the Conseil Scolaire Catholique Providence. I am an Ophea ambassador, and I am also part of the Safety Injury Prevention Advisory Committee with Beck. Thanks, Beck.
Thanks, Karen. Just a few housekeeping pieces before we get started today. The office hours session is being recorded so that we can provide the information to folks that weren't able to join us. We'll be dividing the learning and sharing into three parts. So our initial sharing session from our educators in the field will share their experience and practices. We'll have an opportunity for our participants to ask questions as well as share their own experiences in the area of intramurals. And then we'll do a quick wrap up to identify any outstanding questions and share some of the resources that are available to you as you begin to plan and work on your intramural program. Just a piece of note that today's office hours is based on specific individuals' experiences, and it's important to note that you check your own board's safety policies and procedures as it relates to safety and intramurals. Karen, over to you.
Thanks, Beck. So Ophea's work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories all across Ontario. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet and work on these territories and recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land. In the spirit and intent of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations, we acknowledge the traditional Indigenous territories on which we gather at the beginning of all Ophea sessions. By learning, understanding, and acknowledging, we wish to pay respect to the rich Indigenous history of Ontario. We are aware that our settler acknowledgement uses language which may differ from language used by Indigenous peoples. All right. So it's now my pleasure to introduce you to the individuals that will be sharing their personal experiences with us this afternoon, both at the elementary and secondary panels. Rowan Inglis is a teacher in the Thames Valley District School Board, and in this role continues to work to ensure all learners have the opportunity to achieve optimum success while expressing themselves authentically. Rowan has shared their learning with their staff as part of past Ophea office hours and as a member of the Thames Valley District School Board Equity and Inclusion Committee. Rowan loves to work and play and also contributed to the Ophea resource One a Day for Active Play. Rowan's teaching environments include the French, leadership, mathematics, and learning strategies classrooms. As an Orca instructor and outdoor enthusiast, Rowan teaches in the gym and the great outdoors and is looking forward to being with everyone here today. Nancy Zabukovic uses the pronouns she and her. Nancy is a health and physical education teacher with the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board, presently teaching H&P to students from kindergarten through grade 8. As an Ophea ambassador, Nancy assists in reviewing new Ophea resources. Nancy also actively shares via social media her school community's health and wellness experiences in such areas as healthy school certifications, intramurals, and school-wide events. Nancy is also a community coach, sharing her love of the sport of volleyball with young adults. Nat Ben David is currently teaching secondary phys ed in York Region. She lives in Richmond Hill with her husband and 2 kids. She is one of the lead advisors to her school's wellness club and runs intramural programs throughout the school year in a variety of formats. She has 20 plus years experience coaching rugby and volleyball. This is her first year as an ambassador for Ophea. And finally, but not least important, Dave Inglis is a redirected H&PE teacher from the Thames Valley District School Board. With a passion for physical activity, intramurals, curriculum development, and engaging staff and students in all types of play. He has been a teacher, department head, athletic director, coach, and intramural advocate for 37 years. Dave presently serves as an active member for the Canadian Intramural and Recreation Association and the Ontario Association for the Support of Physical and Health Educators. Dave is currently an instructor at Brock University and a member of Ophea's Safety Injury Prevention Advisory Committee. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today and sharing all of your expertise. We really appreciate having you here. Back to you, Beth.
Thanks, Karen. And just as we get started, grounding some of our work, just to inform everyone that last year, Ophea went through an extensive consultation process with educators, students, and interest holders, and obtained the input from a consulting panel with experts in education, intramurals, gender and sexual diversity, racial diversity, accessibility, and inclusion. One of the results of this work was the development of the guiding principles to provide a foundation to review, reflect on, and re-image an intramural program that recognizes equity-centered practices and promotes a sense of belonging for every student. As a result of these guiding principles, we've identified 6 principles related to the intramurals. Those include student-centered, offering a variety of opportunities, encouraging meaningful connections, inclusive for every student, encouraging collaborative leadership, and the key principle we'll focus on today is providing a physically and emotionally safe environment. And again, just as a reminder, that as we begin into our first discussions, the office hours are here to support educators with specific implementation questions, provide practical input and possible resources, and provide an opportunity for you to network with colleagues across the province. Back to you, Karen.
All right, thanks, Beck. All right, so let's just jump right in with our first question. Let's say I'm going to start with Nancy. Nancy, what are the strategies you use to establish and maintain a physically and emotionally safe intramural environment?
I'll start off by speaking to the photo that's on the slide. So to start the intramurals season, we begin by really exploring what a safe and inclusive intramurals looks like, sounds like, and feels like. So with the students, we brainstorm, and these are all words from the students in their language. So this is something that will keep up throughout the intramurals program, that we can constantly refer to and add to or change, so that if things are going well, we can highlight the things from our brainstorm. If things are not going so well in our program, we can kind of go back to the beginning of our brainstorm and see what needs adjusting. So that's one piece where we start off. Also, in making a physically and emotionally safe environment, we make sure that there's constant check-ins. So at the start of intramurals, during intramurals, and after intramurals, often they're informal check-ins with thumbs up or thumbs down. How are things going? We have emojis put in our gym, whereas students walk in at the end of the day, because our intramurals at the moment takes place after school. So an emoji such as this and different emotions are hung up on the wall, and it's just a quick way for students to high five how they're feeling, and it gives me a sense of what kind of feelings are the students walking in with. Also, informal check-ins throughout the hallways. I make sure that students remember that it's Intramurals Day, and making sure that they'll be attending. And if they're not attending, just checking in with, if everything is okay with them. So we make sure to do those check-ins. One other piece that I'll speak to make that focuses on physically and emotionally safe environment is really starting off the year with building relationships. A lot of students that are coming to the intramural program after school are grade 6, 7s, and 8s. And a lot of them might not have relationships with each other. So we really focus on challenges at the start of the year, inside outside circles at the start of the intramural session, just to get students to have conversations with one another and get comfortable with one another before we get into the games. Learning each other's names so that we're celebrating each other's names and being comfortable with each other and acknowledging each other and celebrating for each other when we're participating in the different activities.
I love that. Thanks, Nancy. Let's go to Rowan. Rowan, how about you? What are some of the strategies you use?
I think a lot of the best or the better practices are kind of paralleled in lots of what educators do. We talked a lot about, we use kind of like the student-centered language. We co-construct particularly like safety concerns, as well as kind of like look fors in activities. What are we looking for to have in our variety of different activity spaces? What kind of things would we like to have? What kinds of things do we need for safety? How do we make sure that everybody is included? But it really kind of starts with talking to the students and finding multiple different ways to engage lots of different groups. Often we find some of the groups that get left out of those conversations are people that you don't necessarily see accessing physical activity spaces very often. Those could be with different adaptive needs or different kind of religious or cultural accommodations that don't necessarily lend themselves to feeling the most comfortable in all spaces. So really engaging with our different clubs, like our Best Buddies, which targets a little bit more support for students with disabilities, taking a look at our QSA, so our Queer Straight Alliance, or BSA, Black Student Association, Muslim Student Association, so that we're really kind of hitting programs that are going to be interesting for all of our kind of different demographics within our school. And then using student leadership in our curricular components like the FitRec course or the PLF 4M course. There's a lot of control about what intramural activities are offered, and also teaching them using the Ophea safety guidelines, how to interpret them and how to plan with safety in mind for our students. So starting with students, engaging lots of different voices, and then engaging student leaders to make those brainstorming pieces reality.
Natalie, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say Rowan and Nancy covered most of sort of similarly what we do. In the secondary setting, a lot of the physical concerns that we sort of start with, it's a lot of policing, I find. Students will come in with, for example, Crocs and slides and want to play intramurals, things like that. They're bringing in their lunch and food and causing slipping hazards and so on. So on day one, it's really a sort of we got to work together here. If you guys want to access these programs, which we're so happy to do for you, everyone's got to kind of be on board with making sure their gym stays a safe space. We also have a lot of students that sort of come in to spectate or just want to watch, but then they'll grab a ball and they'll be playing with it on the sidelines and so on. So it's all sort of this policing piece, and I hate to call it that, but we're trying to put the onus back on the students to say this is an opportunity for us to have fun and work together and all that. So that leadership piece has to come out of the people who are participating and making sure that when you arrive, you follow the rules and all that kind of thing. With regards to the emotional piece, the only thing I wanted to add was sometimes what I'm finding is students will come and they're talk about this a little bit more, I think, in the challenges part, but the students that are athletes versus non-athletes who want to participate, and students will come with friends, some people will come solo, and how do we get everybody involved and feeling safe enough to want to participate and to be comfortable participating. And so one of the things that we make sure that we do at the beginning is we sort of list everybody up on the whiteboard, and then we make the teams for day one just to see sort of where everybody's at skill-wise and so on. And then later on, if we move into sort of a tournament format, which we do at our school sometimes, we'll then ask them if they have requests, but we want to make sure that everyone's being included and everyone sort of has a space to have this physical fun in, despite the fact that they may not be as, physically talented as others. So that's our piece.
Great, thanks. Rowan, have anything to add, it looks like?
Yeah, I just wanted to raise my hand in terms of just like the language of policing. I understand kind of the concept that you're addressing, but I don't like the term policing. I kind of think of as like kind of co-regulating or kind of keeping kids accountable. And that would be the language that I think would kind of fit better in there just based on the other things that you would describe. So I wanted to offer that for you because sometimes language is the piece that is kind of hard to convey, like this is what our intention is, but your goal, or what I understand your goal to be, is to keep the activity spaces safe with appropriate footwear, which is always one of the big things that are on the checklist, and taking a look at, if you are going to be a spectator, if you're going to be there for your friends, where you're going to be so you don't get stepped on, trip on bags, things like that. So it's kind of like those accountability and making sure that everybody's on the same page with those things. So I just wanted to say, I agree with that. It's this challenge that we have in our spaces as well, especially because we are trying to target lots of students. Lots of students come, but then where do we put all of our students and how to keep them all safe? But that language piece of the co-regulation or the accountability, I wanted to offer as a synonym or as an alternate for policing, because I think you're right. There's a bit of a negative connotation, which is not what I understood your goal to be, and it's not how I construed what your intramural programs were.
Yeah, no, definitely. We definitely want the leadership in the positive modeling of the behavior to come from the students. So I think it's a matter of, on that first day where we agree upon some sort of important regulations, and then from then on, it's sort of they model the behavior, hopefully, so that we don't have to be involved. Yeah, and one of the things we've noticed quite a bit, actually, volleyball is a big sport at our school, and people are bringing phones, obviously, and they're watching volleyball with their head down. And so there's very few spaces within the gym where, you can be safe that way. So just something to throw out there eventually when we talk about challenges is how do we deal with that electronic use in spaces where balls are going up in the air and everything like that. So, thank you, Rowan.
All right, thanks to both of you. Dave, anything to add about this physical and emotional safety piece as far as intramurals go?
Yeah, everything that people have said is really good. I think it makes a little bit of an assumption that you have an ongoing, an intramural program that started and you're getting lots of kids. I think part of the challenge, when we come to the challenges, will be just getting kids into the intramural space. And so for me, part of the mindset as a secondary person, it started as soon as those grade 8 tours began, as they're starting to choose my high school. Well, are you going to come to my high school? Look at what we've got for you at lunchtime, especially around the emotional piece of that transition from elementary school to secondary school. They're looking for that safe place. They're looking for that sense of belonging. And they're looking to be able to continue to spend time with their friends that they may not have when they see their timetable roll out at a new school. So that's part of it. It starts with those. And then in the first few weeks, it's very unstructured. It's a minute to win it challenges in the hall outside the phys ed office. It is a lot of drop-in open gym sort of mindset. And that takes me to the whole concept of OPAS. If you go the tools and resources, it will give you special rules and instructions for drop-in self-directed physical activity and safety standards, intramural special rules and instructions as a nice framework. They can be posted. Everybody knows. It helps them understand why the footwear is an issue, and what to do with phones and backpacks are always going to be a challenge. Kids are going to always bring those to the gym and just want to put them off to the side. And frankly, I don't have a problem with that, as long as they understand that I'm not going to be responsible for it. If it gets damaged, that's on you, as long as it goes off to the side, or you could leave it in your locker and come back the next day and whatever it happens to be. A couple of other things. For a long time, I've made the connection between physical literacy, teaching games for understanding, intramurals, and mental health. So if I can get kids into my facility space using activities that they are comfortable with and know about from the experiences they have in their health and phys ed classes, It's helping them develop some physical literacy skills. It's supporting their mental health because it's got a safe place to be. And you will find that as long as they perceive it that way, you're going to get more and more kids coming, and that helps address the emotional safety. And then finally, one of the big things that we've been talking about on the safety team is the types of activities that we incorporate into our intramural program. If they're not perceived as being safe, or they're perceived as in such a way that I don't feel emotionally safe, then they're not going to come. And so it's not just a matter of selecting a game that we as the educator want. It is selecting a game, having that critical eye, looking at it from the standpoint, is it going to attract kids, or is it going to scare kids away because they're not feeling emotionally safe? And to somebody's point about the catering to all your students, that's the key. It can't just be targeted at the kids that are playing in your intramural or your inter-school volleyball team or your inter-school basketball team. It has to be conducive to getting those kids from the demographics that don't typically play on those teams or are looking for that safe place to be. And I think that those are really overriding principles.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Dave. And on that note, on the idea of including all students, we're going to jump into our second question, which some of you touched on a little bit with your responses to question one, but we'll chat a little bit more about how can you use student input voice to help plan and implement your intramural program. And since I left you for almost last time, Natalie, we'll start with you.
Sounds great. Thank you. So one of the things that at our school, I'm one of the advisors for the Wellness Club, and we use that club sort of as a piece to help us build and make our intramurals happen. So TWIC is the Thornley Wellness Initiative Council, and so it's made up of this year almost, I think, just over 100 members. We have lots of students who are part of it, and our executive team will put together Instagram polls. We have meetings to sort of pull people in to get student voice from the Instagram polls we'll get from within the whole school community, but within our meeting, there'll be a Google form that students can get into and say, what do we want to have? What sports do we want to have, for example? And how do we want to see it run? Our TWIC Council does mostly tournament-style intramurals, so it'll be a short period of time. We do also have pickup-style intramurals at our school, but for those ones, we're able to sort of market the event, ask students what they want to see there, and then you can even post event feedback forms so people can say, what did you like, what did you not like? With regards to the pickup style intramurals, what will typically happen is, for example, for volleyball, the one I run, and we have a Google Classroom, and students are able to contact me there in terms of how they would like to see it run or what they would like to see happen. And I think that was it. There was, and then there's an email portion as well where they're able to get in touch with regards to that. So that's sort of how we engage the school community, is through TWIC. That Wellness Council does a lot of the exec team on there does a lot of the announcements and the posting and the feedback forms and all that kind of thing. So we're able to find out sort of what people want, and then afterwards how it went.
Hey, Rowan, anything to add?
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot like the teacher jargon right now, or one of the pieces like triangulation of data. It's a variety of tools used in a variety of different settings to basically collect feedback and data to implement changes in intramural programs over time. Conversations, observations, products, talking with the students that show up, also talking with students that aren't showing up, or people that are kind of teetering at the door. Noticing who is present, who is absent. Dave talked about, that's weird. My dad talked about just having different abilities in the gym. It's a sign that it serves very much one type of students. If you see a lot of the students that are already represented in your inter-school athletics, in your intramural programs, if you have the same types of students in there, then there are gaps. What are we missing? And then social media being a really cool tool. There's a lot of Instagram used within our school. More students engage with our Instagram accounts than with like the week at a glances that are sent to their emails, or the emails that are sent, or the Google Classroom posts. Social media has been very powerful, and a lot of what our students do, our parliament clubs, our other clubs, they all kind of collaborate. We have like I want to say like a school student representative of a variety of different clubs that kind of meet once a month to make sure that we're connected on Instagram. They have an idea of who other representatives are in the school, and there's a little bit of collaboration that happens there. It kind of creates that a network within the school community of those different clubs, like Jack Chapter, which we have to support student mental health, versus Active Rec, which are our Fit Rec representatives that have an Instagram presence because they advertise intramurals that are run by students. Your SAA, your Student Athletic Association, your Parliament group, your we have a robotics team. Like all of those people are in there and being able to collaborate once a month, facilitated by admin and at least a teacher in there. It kind of helps people figure out what is happening within the school, and that communication of what's happening. There's often communication breakdowns that happen within school systems, or within schools, at least in my experience. Like you miss an email, you miss a post somewhere, and there are breakdowns. But the more people are talking and the more people kind of reshare that message in the right platform that's accessible for students, I find the more successful our programs are. And using a variety of those tools to kind of tweak those changes. You've got students that can do a whole bunch of intramural posts, but don't necessarily know how to take that feedback and implement it. So teachers to students, students to admin, admin to students, the reciprocity of communication, I think, is super important for effective program use.
That's great. Thanks, Ron. I love the idea of that meeting of the minds and representing all the different student groups in the school to make sure that all are represented. And I was going to ask Natalie quickly, how do you decide who's on this TWIC council? Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what TWIC represents and who's involved in this wellness council?
Yeah, definitely. So we basically all are welcome. Like that's why our club grew so much this year. It's almost overwhelming. But in the year before, so each year there'll be similar to a student council. There'll be elections to have a president and treasurer and all the little pieces that fit together. We have a logistics team, a social media team, an announcements team, all part of the executive. So there'll be a lead person for those. And I forgot to mention, actually, I don't know if it's possible. I'll quickly share my screen just to show you for an example of how that works. Let me see if I can get this up so I can show it to you. We have weekly meetings where students in our general populations that are not part of the executive will come and they'll collaborate with us in terms of helping us to give ideas in terms of choosing which group they want to work with, whether it be logistics or social media or whatever, so everybody can kind of find their home in there. And so the execs will meet once a week. The general membership of that huge piece of the club meets in the cafeteria, once a week, once every 2 weeks for the exec and once every 2 weeks. So it's every week for staff, but every other week for the general members. And then usually what we'll have is something, I don't want to take credit for this actual planning checklist because one of my colleagues made it and she's amazing. But basically you'll see, this is an example of we did a World Cup for soccer when the weather was still nice outdoors. And we'll just go through, we give them the framework, the sort of the executives, and then they will go within the club and they will get volunteers to do things, and they will have different parts of the club working towards, so for example, the logistics, what materials do we need, how are we going to market it, they put due dates on things, so it's really the students who are doing everything. You'll see some of the stuff is crossed off because this is their to-do list as they're doing it, what to do before the event, who will help run it, and so on. So throughout the year, we still do accept new members. So we still have members that are joining now in November. And then everything sort of leads up to the end in April, May, where we have a wellness fair. And pretty much every different division is involved in that big event. Just going to stop the share there. I'm not sure if that answered your question, Karen. Sorry.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen again. There we go. And as you're all speaking, I can't help but make connections to healthy schools. So are any of you, any of your programs, intramural programs, part of your healthy schools, maybe your healthy school certification, or are you involved in the healthy schools program? Nancy, do you have anything else that you'd like to add about student voice and input in your program?
I just want to say there are so many great ideas. Got my sticky notes. I'm writing so much down. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Yeah, we do many surveys throughout the year. Sometimes they're formal, where it's a Google form. We've used the Ophea intramural planning survey questions to help guide us in what questions to ask. Sometimes it's informal surveys that we just kind of ask students throughout the hallway or at lunchtime, or we see them at recess time, just kind of get their input that way. The surveys have really guided us in terms of what activities are being played week after week. And in what style do we want it to be competitive, or does half the group want a competitive version of this game and half are doing recreational? So it helps get student voice there. In terms of when to host or when to have the intramurals. Right now, we had a big group of students that were able to show up on Thursdays after school. So we've gone with that right now. We're trying to increase supervision, get some educators on board to help out with some other times to supervise students throughout the lunch periods or before school. And also just one other thing is with student voice, it helps us in terms of what equipment we want to purchase. We're always trying to find different grants to explore, and we always get student voice in terms of what different activities and sports have they not tried that perhaps we could explore purchasing some equipment and trying out some new equipment. So that's what I wanted to add there.
Thanks so much, Nancy. All right, so let's move on to question 3. What are the biggest challenges and obstacles that still need to be discussed for intramurals to be a little more successful? I think we've touched on a few, but I think we may there may be some others that we can add to this. So let's start with Rowan.
Nice. I'm just pulling up my notes. I think one of the challenges that we are experiencing right now is kind of that sharing responsibility for the upkeep of our activity spaces and our equipment. We are a school that has lots of kind of community partnerships, and I don't know how many physical educators out there have spent a lot of time organizing equipment rooms and having it being beautiful and just so, and coming back maybe after a weekend or after a day and things aren't quite or things are blown apart or moved around, things like that. And it's a little bit disappointing, and then things go missing, and then you're losing some of the equipment that you had set aside to be able to run those programs that you're hoping for. And then the other piece I think that Dave touched upon was just kind of the stepping on each other's toes in big schools, secondary schools, even large elementary schools. We're definitely at Beale, which has lots of different people and thousands of students to attend with. It is difficult to make sure that the workload and the responsibility is distributed and communicated really well with everybody to be able to ensure that there aren't kind of breakdowns. This club is offering this club was supposed to offer this, and then we have 2 events and poor attendance because things are mistimed, and if it 2 separate events could have been more successful running together, but nobody had thought to kind of communicate those things ahead of time. So it's the moving pieces, the responsibility for space, and then also that staff buy-in. Intramural programs are amazing, but also when students are doing it, there still is the accountability on a staff member within an activity space to still promote that safety component of physical activity, because students are students. They are learning about ensuring safe spaces, but they aren't experts at it at this point in time. And there are lots of people that would rather mark 100 extra things as opposed to set foot in the gym. There's a little bit of fear associated with it if you aren't super practiced. So it's a little bit of kind of inviting in staff to experience what the benefits of intramural programs could be and connecting it to something that's a little bit more universal, maybe the well-being, maybe the wellness aspects, maybe the mental health aspects, and to kind of tie those areas into this is why we want to offer these programs for students, not just to be physically active, but also to help them be more regulated in your classroom, be better manage stress within your classroom space. So being able to kind of find the hooks to get educators to better contribute or offer something to the benefit of all students outside of just a curricular space.
And that there is the $1 million question. When you figure out how to get all teachers on board, please let us know so we can share with everyone. I'm going to go to you, Nat.
Thanks so much. I'm so sorry. I do actually have to leave shortly, so I just want to add a couple things. Rowan, I completely agree with all the things that you talked about. Teacher supervision for sure is something that we are trying to figure out how to spread out a little bit more, as well as the equipment piece. When we come back, if we're not the ones in phys ed that are supervising, can we still find our equipment, and have we lost equipment? Because there's been a lot of equipment loss, especially in the open gym scenarios that have taken place in the past. We also have an issue with space, with the amount of extracurricular programs that are going on. We can't find enough space to run the intramurals because teams are practicing at lunchtime sometimes and after school and before school and so on. So those are sort of the logistical pieces. I want to talk a little bit about a couple notes that I just made about inclusivity on sign up. Some of the tournament style intramurals that we run, one of the issues we've run into is that we'll say you can sign up as a team or you can sign up as an individual. And what will happen is that we won't have enough individuals sign up to make a team with the individuals, and then students who don't have a group of friends that will play with them can't participate in that sort of tournament style way of doing intramurals. So I want to mention that one. The non-athlete student engagement, I wondered about, and I'm sorry, we'll be able to finish completely the discussion, but talking about the students who aren't necessarily very proficient in whatever activities that you want to do. We don't want to exclude the athletes that are playing on team sports, but sometimes it intimidates other students from joining because they're not afraid that they're not good enough. And the last thing that I really wanted to mention just before I go is the gender divide. I'll just talk about volleyball in particular. So I have a group of girls who are asking to have an intramural, and we've set it all up and so on. But I'm not sure how other schools deal, and we can talk about how we deal with the idea of having girls only or boys only intramurals in a time where that's not quite so simple. So we want to. I just kind of wanted to talk about how to manage requests from students who are saying, "Well, I'm comfortable this way," but at the same time, making it a safe space for students who are trans or non-binary, and also for those girls who are saying, "I want to be in a girl-only environment." So it's a hard. I don't know what to do, sort of as a supervisor or as a helper to this program to make sure that everyone is included. So that's a challenge that I'm sort of looking to discuss a little bit. Thank you.
No, thank you, Nat. Lots of great questions. Nancy, would you like to add, or do you by any chance have any great suggestions for Nat?
I don't have any great suggestions, but I will add a couple of the challenges or obstacles that I see. I agree with communication. So, sometimes what I notice is one particular group or club might be seen as greater value than others within the club. So getting buy-in, as was mentioned, with all staff, that there is great value in intramurals. So getting the word out there. And I love the idea of inviting staff members in to see what intramurals is all about. Another challenge and kind of the next step we're working towards is how to get students who might not be comfortable at the moment, kind of to take that first step, through the gym doors and just get an idea and a feel for what intramurals is all about. Because in speaking with a number of individuals, when I've asked them, hey, come on out to intramurals, a number of them have said right away, oh, I'm not good at sports. So just kind of breaking that down and getting them to realize that, you know what, come and give it a try and see how things go. And there's lots of activities that we play and just to kind of, I feel like at my school, we need to somehow advertise a little bit more, whether it's I've seen try days. So, hey, bring a friend and try intramurals for a lunch or try intramurals one after school to see what it's about. Getting the students that are part of intramurals now, perhaps creating a promotional video of what intramurals looks like, sounds like, and feels like, and some testimonials. So just a bit more advertising and ways to get kids, students out there who might be a little bit hesitant is sort of a next step that I'm hoping to explore in the next few months to get more students out to intramurals.
Thanks, Nancy. I love that try day and videos idea. I think that's fantastic. Rowan, you had something to add.
I was trying to find the opportunity to talk to Nat before she unfortunately had to go, because I think she raised some of the kind of ongoing conversations around accessing physical activity and spaces. I really hear, regardless of kind of what program you offer, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't feel the most represented in there. So it's finding a balance to represent all different kinds of populations. So having, and I feel like the sport offerings and the skill level pieces kind of goes into who is going to be there, finding non-traditional activities. We had students last year run a culture day. And so the theme of the event was not necessarily physical activity, but what they did as part of that day, as part of that student-led experience, was they offered experiences for other people to try different cultural games. There was a couple of variations on limbo. There were some indigenous, I believe it's Indigenous Games, could be Indigenous Olympics. I'm not quite sure of the wording, but they have very specific types of skills that in different tribes, different groups, affinities, they would have kind of different trials that they would have to pass to show strength or skill or prowess as a hunter, as a gatherer, different flexibility things. So they were able to kind of showcase those pieces of their cultural identity and bring more people out. And then that created a buzz and an interest for other people to kind of try different days. The try day, looking at kinball, we hosted like an OFSA try day where we got a grant to have somebody come in and take a look at kind of the non-competitive side of things, looking at collaborative games and looking at different materials, like different size balls, different activities or twists on traditional games to kind of level those playing fields a little bit. I also don't mind the idea. There's been like an own this space or an own this ice or this is our house kind of concept where you can have like a sign out of a space for a particular group. We've had our Muslim Student Association book out the small gym space for prayer and then a social activity as well, which involved, they got out some ping pong tables as well. So offering those spaces or offering that opportunity for different groups that would like to gather and be homogenous together to access and then plan and lead activities within that space that's specific to their group. I think as teachers, you would like to create activities that are accessible for everybody, but giving students the opportunity to take ownership or plan what they would like to have for their specific population, I think is a kind of it parallels some of the things that we're talking about in terms of best practices, but a shift on traditional mindset. It's often us building something and students will come, as opposed to students building something for themselves and they will be there. Just as a couple things to kind of consider, or things that are floating out around in my brain based on Nat's comments.
Great. Thanks, Rowan. Okay. And Dave, in all of your years' experience, you must have some knowledge to share with us.
I'm going to go off the board a little bit here, Karen. So
absolutely,
funding is always an issue in terms of new equipment and new initiatives. So Bex put in the chat about OFSA's Tri-Day, which isn't what Nancy was referring to in terms of her Tri-Day, but Tri-Day grant or Tri-Day funding from OFSA. It's now changed this year, but there is that funding model or other funding models that are available. Supervision is always an issue. Time, you having the time, you don't have to run your intramural program every single day of the week. Everybody needs time, you included, your kids included. So keeping that in mind and allocating like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, the following week, like you can play with your schedule depending on whatever. The whole facility thing is definitely an issue, especially in large schools where you don't have a common lunch, or your lunch is your gym is your lunchroom in some elementary schools or whatever happens to be. I do have a tough time, even as a secondary educator and as a coach. My school team should not be taking my gym at lunch. That's for intramurals or something along those lines. So one of the big things is we have to shift the mindset in schools to help support all kids, not just the 10%. It's what are we doing with the other 90%? We've seen during the pandemic and we're seeing the fallout now, when kids don't have that physical activity outlet, we have some mental health issues. We have some behavioral challenges. That self-regulation isn't there. This is a way to let off some steam, and intramurals at lunchtime will support everybody. Go recruit other staff members. Ask them, can you give me a day? Or how many days could you give me in a semester? Or how many days could you give me in a month? And then schedule around their availability. If they're not comfortable, as Rowan said, then maybe find something that's just supervising, unlocking and locking the doors on an open gym day, things like that. I think I'm gonna read something. One is a quote. The first one is, if your school invested all its time, resources, and money that it currently puts into the provision of inter-school sport and put it into the provision of informal intramural sport, would it have a greater impact on nurturing the physical educated person? So I'm going to say yes. And therefore, I'm going to challenge educators that we need to shift our mindset a little bit about how we structure our day and plan around our inter-school sports and things like that. The kids that are struggling, this is a way to help them. And I think that's an important thing. And then the other piece is our programming and our structures. volleyball leagues, intramural hockey league or floor hockey league, whatever, they tend to take up time, like months, to get the whole schedule done, depending on the number of teams. So restructuring and reframing how we do things, and keeping in mind, intramurals, they constitute theme days, self-directed activities, traditional sports and traditional structures, clubs. Clubs are part of intramurals. It's things that are done outside of the class. So run a euchre tournament, do some backyard games, have whatever is the ongoing thing. Try to incorporate it into your programming so that it brings more people. Have a staff team. Staff teams are always lots of fun. Fundraisers for the intramural program, staff student volleyball game, staff student basketball game, staff student floor hockey game. I guarantee it will be packed. Okay, just because they want to play. Two more things quickly. One is the whole concept of meaningful PE. Okay, if you look at the 6 attributes: social interaction, just the right challenge, personally relevant learning, delight, fun, and motor competence. That's what intramurals is all about if it's done right. I came across at PHE Canada's national conference alternate environmental activities. Take them outside. Find a way to utilize a scavenger hunt. Find a way to take them out on a nice day. Even today was a nice day. You go out on your field. Okay, do something like whatever. And then the last piece is the idea of we as teachers need to be self-reflective, and we need to teach our kids to be reflective, because not everything will go 100% the way they envision it going. So being able to cope with and be flexible and not necessarily default to, well, we ran it last year, let's run it this year. So those programming and format choices that you put in place are really good. And if you read, and this is for Nancy, the elementary DPA PPM, if you read it and you have ongoing structured intramural programming, it can constitute supporting your DPA initiatives in your school. It's written right there in the language of the PPM. But you have to have the entire school invested in opportunities on an ongoing basis for kids to engage in physical activity at lunchtime or sometime outside of the classroom. But then you are supporting your colleagues with DPA, and that's where the student leadership comes in as well. They can run the activities with the supervision of staff. So all of those things combined, the challenge is ours as educators to find ways to meet the needs of all of our kids in all of our schools.
Wow, thanks, Dave. I knew we could count on you for some nuggets of wisdom. Great information.
You're calling me old, Karen?
No, I'm calling you wise and experienced.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for the information that you shared. We're going to move ahead. So a lot of the questions raised, very valid and definitely things that we all experience at different times in our buildings and in our environments. One resource that we have to share to hopefully help you answer some of those questions is the resource called Play for All. We mentioned at the beginning that Play for All includes guiding principles, and we talked about the what was included in those guiding principles, including physical and emotional safety. And this resource also includes some planning activities, gives you some ideas on inclusive approaches for intramurals, some activity ideas, and how to include student voice and choice. No problem. And also, resource database, so other activities. So please go visit ophea.net, play all. I think Beck probably put the link already in the chat. So for more information, go visit our Ophea's resource, Play for All. And on that note, I will pass it over to you, Beck.
Dave, did you want to go ahead before I wrap and close up the afternoon?
Yeah, just on the Play for All piece, because I work with Joanne to help rewrite them. They've all been rewritten from an inclusive lens. All the variations are already embedded in it. And that goes back to all of our conversations about those non-traditional activities that will help engage more kids, because they can at least see themselves doing them. They're not intimidated because they don't have the skill set that everybody can do them.
Thanks. And thanks for your continued work behind the scenes with that, Dave. All right, folks, that wraps it up. And there's a lot of information to share. So we know the folks behind the scene, and I want to give a shout out to Katie and Steve that are hiding behind the scenes, but are the supporting backbone between getting this off the ground and supporting Karen and I in organizing our amazing facilitators and us as moderators. This is not the end of the office hours. Again, this is the first of many. You can see on the screen there, our next one will focus specifically on emotional safety, and that'll be after the winter break, which I'm sure we all need and will take great use of, the end of January. So January 25th from 4 to 4:45. Please keep a lookout for this recording and some of the resources that are available. And as always, a reminder, there is a ton of support and resources available to you from Ophea. I'm going to post all of our great links in there. We ask that if you don't already have a free Ophea account, that you sign up using your email. That process changed almost over a year ago now. But some folks, we're always looking for more folks to join and get into the access of all the great resources. Again, you can always visit us at ophea.net. And there is all the wonderful ways of staying connected with Ophea and networking with colleagues across the province. So thank you for joining us on an evening after a long school day. We hope you get some rest tonight. Take care of yourselves. We look forward to seeing you for emotional safety office hours in January. Take care, everybody.